Okay. So again, Blair, thanks for taking the time, to talk with us today. Um, I just had a couple of quick questions regarding your Galapagos trip that we're hoping, you can help answer. And we just want to hear how it went. I know it's been a few months since you traveled, but maybe we can start, with the first question, of what first got you interested to travel to the Galapagos.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to tell you, it was the trip of a lifetime. To go to the Galapagos Islands has always been on my bucket. I won't say always been on my bucket list, but I first heard of the Galapagos Islands or started paying attention maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. I just kept hearing stories about the islands themselves, of course, hearing about Charles Darwin, in school. But I had friends who had visited there, and they kept coming back with these stories about how amazing it is, and it's a cool trip. And I was looking for something different, especially now coming out of the pandemic, that wasn't as crazy as going to Europe with all the travel nonsense that was going on, especially during the last summer, flights being canceled and all of that. And this just seemed like a perfect intimate trip with me and my fiance. We took the trip, the two of us, and I know we'll get into that in a second, but just the intimacy of the evolution was just fantastic.
That's excellent. And I think you're absolutely right when you mentioned there was a huge sort of like export of tourism from the United States to Europe. Everybody was going to Europe, Italy, France. Those places were packed. And then places closer to home, like in South America, offered a great
Mhm.
opportunity. And, you were among, some of the guests that actually took advantage of that opportunity. So I'm happy for that because tourism as well is picking up. You probably didn't encounter any crowds while you were there, but it gets more and more crowded. And so I think you actually traveled at a perfect time.
Yeah. I tell you, one of the things that's amazing about this kind of trip on this intimate boat, I think there are 32 of us on the Evolution, is that it is a quiet trip and an intimate journey for adults. But on our vacation itself, we had one group of people. They were a family. There were 18 family members, and there was the patriarch of the family, an elder gentleman, and his wife. And he just took it upon himself, apparently a few years ago, to say, I'm going to pay for the family's vacations from here on out. Instead of leaving a lot of money in my will for them to spend when I'm gone, I'm going to bring the family together. So it was great. So they had a lot of young kids. There was one baby, well, maybe 1 years old, I think, that everybody adored. And maybe about 9 or 10 young kids between the ages of 7 and 12, and they loved it. And what I'm getting at is the adventure of a trip like this to the Galapagos, because every day we're snorkeling, every day we're on the pangas, or I hadn't heard the word panga before this, but a dinghy or raft with an engine on it. But every day we're hiking, or snorkeling, and or just traveling to one of the other islands. But it was great because the older people loved it, and the kids absolutely loved it. I'm a big kid, so I absolutely loved it.
That's amazing. Actually, Blair, the first memory, well, I don't know if you're aware, but it's a family company. It was actually started by my parents in 1986.
Oh,
So
that's great. I didn't know that. I didn't know you were related to the family. That's fantastic.
yeah, so
What a
I
cool.
was
I
almost
saw.
raised in the Galapagos.
Oh, wow.
And
So you
my
got some
first
stories.
memory, yeah, my first memory that I have as a kid, I was about four, and it was, seeing a sea lion like for the first time. So I know how impactful these things can be for kids. And so it's a great destination, definitely for family travel. And I'm happy you got to see that because I know there were a bunch of kids near departure, and that usually happens in the summer months.
Oh yeah, I absolutely loved it. There was one older gentleman who said, "I didn't, really necessarily sign up to have all these kids with around me." It's like it's great to me. I love the energy. I love the curiosity. So no, it was fantastic.
Excellent. Yeah, we did hear about that guest.
Oh,
So
did you?
yeah.
He seemed pretty low
Blair,
key. I don't know. I mean, you heard about it, so I guess there was. I don't know how vocal he was about it, but he seemed pretty low key. But I think it's exciting that you can have all of those um, outlets for so many
Yeah,
different demographics for everybody to enjoy. It's like being in the Galapagos to me, and it's amazing that you grew up there. It was like a living and moving, breathing museum everywhere you looked. And I have to tell you about my sea lion experience that just made the whole trip for me.
awesome. Yeah, I think that's actually one of those questions that coming up. So quickly, Blair, how did you hear about Quasar?
Well, Shelley Howell, who has been a godsend and an angel in my life, she has coordinated all of my vacations with my family and my kids since they were very young kids. They're now 21, 23, and 25. So for the last 15 years, really, almost every summer she'll coordinate a trip. So every January or so, I'll reach out to Shelley and I'll say, okay, what are we doing this year? Where's a great place to go? And it was really Shelley who initially, Shelley Howell, from Shelley, I forget the exact name of her company, but it's a touring company. Um, but she was the one who initially said to me, you want to avoid Europe right now, and these are the reasons why. And this is a trip you want to go to. And she knew that was on my list of places to visit one of these days.
That's amazing. Well, good for her because we're,
Yeah,
you know, just a lot of experience in terms of how we craft the itineraries, and I think you were able to enjoy that, right? You on
yeah,
purpose we avoid the larger ships and most ships in general, so the guests actually feel, like sort of like Darwin did, when he visited the islands for the first time, and that makes it so much more special, right? Often you have only a couple of sea lions there to play with, and when you're there just with a handful of guests like you were versus 100 other guests like the big ships, it makes a big difference.
right. And I've done those big ships before, and it's like night and day. I mean, you really feel the unique aspect that you feel like you're out there all by yourself, which is amazing. I hadn't even thought about this, but I was showing my older brother pictures of the giant tortoises we saw, and he said, "How old do you think that is?" And I said, "Well, the naturalist told me about 500 years old." He said, "You know what's crazy about that? That tortoise or Charles Darwin probably saw each other." Now, who's to say that? But they were there at the same time, 500 years
Yeah,
ago. I mean, you can kind of take that mental leap. That's
yeah,
that's amazing. That's mind-boggling when you think about it.
it is kind of like going back in time if they could speak
Mhm.
only.
Right, exactly, exactly.
So Blair, you basically answered one of the questions, which was, so you've experienced like large ship cruising, maybe 500 or 1,000 passengers. How would you compare that to what you saw in Galapagos?
I don't think you can compare it. What makes what's exciting are the differences. The fact that you don't have a lot of people kind of crowding you and breathing down, kind of breathing down your neck, and um, in this type of scenario, you have a chance to get to know people. You have a chance to have conversations. You have a chance to really, just explore those relationships. But you also, it's not so close knit that you can't kind of break off and do your own thing. My fiance and I did that a couple of times. Like, sometimes at the end of a long day, you may not want to be chatty at dinner. So during those
Yeah,
times, one night they brought food down to our room, and another time they just set up a separate table for the two of us outside on the deck when everybody else was in the dining room. But most of the nights we sat with the other guests and just kind of talked about the day and talked about the week and or just talked about life, which was fantastic. So the biggest difference is you just don't have so many people, and there's a sense of I don't know, those trips, even though they're vacations, the big giant cruises, there's always a
yeah.
sense of anxiety. Like, are we awake on time? Are we going to make the trip on time? Are we going to get back to the ship on time? Once you hit port. And part of it is the familiarity that is really, I think, engendered between the guests and the naturalists, because they're the ones, as you know, that we communicate with the
Yeah.
most. There are guides for those that week and a half, and they are kind of our beacon uh, with all things related to life for those 8 days. Um, so it's personalized, which I really appreciate it.
Great. So on that same topic, what were your impressions of the naturalists?
Um, Amazing. First of all, their knowledge blew me away. I mean, I didn't expect the nightly kind of recap in advance of what to expect the next day. So, just really their incredible understanding of the islands, of the topography, the geography, the animals, the history was fascinating to me. But then also their physical prowess. I mean, all of them are are great with hiking, but also I snorkeled every day, and just the couple times. And Bolo was one of ours. I forgot, was it Catherine? I forgot exactly. You may know, but I'm not sure. But Bolo was one of them, and just watching them underwater, just kind of take these deep dives. And one time he dove really deep and pulled out a lobster and just kind of let us look at it underwater, and then let it go. And then I think I want to say Christina, I'm not sure, but she pointed out a few
Yeah,
sharks to us. It
Christina.
was Christina, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, who was great. Pointed out a shark to me that was hiding, in the reef that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. But then, I mean, they're like fish underwater. And listen, I thought I was doing pretty good holding my breath. I don't know, 15 seconds. I felt like they were down. They were like fish. They were down there like for 2 minutes. Not exactly, but just it was amazing to watch how they just adapted to the water themselves and the nature, thus the naturalists.
yeah.
And there's another time we were on the water and on these islands for the first 7 days. I think it was maybe on the eighth day we came into land. I forgot exactly where we were at the time, but the day we saw the giant tortoises, it was kind of cool. The first time we saw other people outside the boat, but in returning to the ship, there was a big storm that was on the horizon, but the wind had really kicked up and the water was really crazy. And a lot of those, we got on first. Our Penga got back to the Evolution to our boat. But the other ones, there were two Pengas left in the water with all the choppy water. And it was really phenomenal watching these naturalists and watching the crew um, help those other two Pangas dock on the Evolution, because they'd have to come up real close and then they'd have to push the boat back, so it wouldn't tilt over or just too much water. I don't know what was going on, but it was dangerous. And the baby was on one of those Pangas, and just to watch them, they're like professional athletes the way they handled that situation. It was really incredible to watch.
Yeah, they're they are really the guys that make the difference, in at least on Quasar's cruises, and that's why we pay so much importance to the guides. And who would believe it? For example, you had somebody like Bolo. Bolo, I believe, has been guiding for 27 years. Can you
Wow.
imagine doing that every single day for 27 years? And they still have this like passion and enthusiasm and energy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
To me, it's like mind-boggling how they do that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because you're right. They're so excited about their work. And I asked him about that on the last day, and he dropped us off, and he was going right back, I think, that day to go welcome in another
Yep.
crew for the next 8 or 9, 10 days. And was just as excited. Sad to say goodbye to us, or he seemed to be sad, but but excited about the next team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the love they have for the islands, and Galapagos always puts on a different show every week. So we have guests, Blair, that have come with us, 5 or 6 different times. Every single time they see something different, something unique, something
Mhm.
that they haven't seen before. I have been there, you can imagine, countless times, and it never gets boring because there's always something new happening. And that's,
Wow, I can
yeah,
see
the
it.
magic of a wild paradise like the Galapagos.
Oh yeah. Well, we hope to come back. My fiance and I have 9 kids between us. She has 6 and I have 3. And we both said we want to come back at one point and bring the kids. They're all young. They're not babies. They're young adults now. But do what this family did. I love that idea of just bringing the whole family.
I know travel is like, you know, for at least like family bonding and a place where like many generations can enjoy the destination equally. That's
Right.
often hard to find, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you
Blair,
used the
so
perfect word for it. Paradise, by the way. Sorry.
yeah, it is. There's here the question: what did you like most about your trip? Is that the sea lion you were
Oh, I can tell.
mentioning?
Listen, I got this in the Galapagos. I had these two pendants, but I got one that's a sea lion. I don't even know if you can see it.
Oh
I
yeah,
call it
yeah.
Seymour the sea lion. But yeah, it started. I think the first day we were out there, we saw a school of sea lions just jumping out of the water. I remember saying then, man, I'd love to be in the water with those sea lions at this moment. And then we went out on a kayak one day, and one or two were swimming around us. But like 7 days in, we went in the water, and there were about 15 or 20 sea lions swimming all around us. and we stayed in the water for about 30 minutes, and they were just. I posted some of this to my social media, but I have so much footage I didn't even post. But swimming right between your legs and all around you, and they come right up to the camera. And of course, we never touch anything, so we didn't touch them. But and that was another thing that was really incredible to me to watch how at ease and comfortable the wildlife are with everybody, because like I mean they're generations deep of just
Yeah.
feeling comfortable with human beings. But no, that was amazing. And at one point, the gentleman who was driving the tank, one of the crew members, threw a rope in the water, and I guess the sea lions knew what to do, because they were playing around this rope, just grabbing it and playing it, trying to pull it, and they would take turns just really just nibbling on it, and they'd move off, another one would come and nibble on it and try to pull it for a little bit. But that rope kind of brought a lot of those sea lions around, and kind of was I guess initiated the playtime. But that's something I will never ever forget.
Yeah, it's amazing. I often hear, guests saying that just wildlife in the Galapagos is different. But if you think about it, that's how wildlife once used to be everywhere in the world until we sort of invaded their space, started hunting them or scaring them. And the thing about Galapagos, because the islands were isolated for so long, and then the park did such a good job at a very early stage to protect the animals, that they never learned to fear humans. And you experience this. If you were allowed to touch the animals, you could touch absolutely every single animal. They won't move, right? The birds
That's
won't
right.
fly away. One bird even forgot how to fly. I don't know, in your itinerary, did you make it to Isabela and Fernandina Islands on the west?
We did, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so you saw the flightless cormorant, that because
I don't remember that one.
the one that
No.
had the atrophied wings, the small wings, and it just dives.
No, I would remember that. I don't think I saw that, or we didn't. I had to talk to Bolo. I don't think he pointed that one out to me. But I remember
Well,
that was where we saw. I'm almost sure what do you call it? The albatross.
that's in the south, in
Oh,
Española.
that's in the south.
Yeah,
Okay.
in the south. Yeah, so
Yeah.
well, it's basically, the creatures there have adapted in a way that it's absolutely amazing. And you saw the marine iguanas everywhere, the only reptile that actually dives and stays underwater for hours. And so um,
Right.
it's just so different from what we're used to seeing, right?
That's right. That's right. That was just magical. I live here in the marina here in Los Angeles, not far from LAX, the airport, and I was at, meeting a friend last night for dinner, and just kind of seeing the wildlife there. And I can hear the seals or sea lions from where I live, and but they are so skittish. I mean, you can't even get within 20 feet of them before they'll jump up on the docks and everything. But if they see you coming, they all just jump in the water, and it's
Yeah.
it's just very different scenario.
And that's actually the Galapagos sea lions. They are California sea lions. That's where they came from. So the ones you're seeing,
Oh, is that right?
yeah,
Oh,
those
wow.
are,
Didn't know
they
that.
came from there to the Galapagos many, many years ago. All right. So moving on, Blair, do you have any tips just for somebody who's interested in visiting the Galapagos, or recommendations or advice?
Oh, oh man, just come with a, a wide open mind. Just be ready and willing to experience everything. I mean, I would say, if anything, don't say no to anything. I mean, say yes to everything. Every opportunity, every experience. Go. Because I did say no once, and everybody was going out to see. I guess it was a beach with all this beautiful red sand, and I'd seen the pictures, and I wanted to go out, and I just wasn't feeling well that day, and of course, I regretted it afterwards. Everybody came back how beautiful the red sand was, and the wildlife on the red sand on the beach, the red beach. But no, I think just say yes to everything, um, and just I don't know, just it's hard not to enjoy. Just have fun. I mean, you guys really, Quasar, you guys have thought of everything. You've anticipated everything. You don't have to think much. Just don't lose your passport and
Yeah.
and come ready to have a good time.
But I think that's a great piece of advice, Blair. Some people are scared of snorkeling with sharks, and it's a common fear for many people. But you get to experience that snorkeling with sharks in Galapagos is extremely safe. There haven't been any
Oh yeah.
attacks on any tourists, and taking you out of your comfort zone, doing something like each day that maybe scares you a little bit and takes you out of your comfort zone, at the end yields for these sort of like transformational experiences. And so whether it's snorkeling or the hiking or the sea lions. I really agree with what you said. Just say yes, trust, you know, the almost 4 decades of experience that Quasar has and how we've sort of designed these trips to
That's
take
exactly
people,
right.
on these experiences that really, change your view of nature and of wildlife.
That's exactly right. And I hadn't really snorkeled a lot in my lifetime. One of the other families that were on the evolution with us have done a lot of snorkeling, throughout their years, especially the father. And he said, I've never seen anything like this. And in terms of the sea lions and just again how friendly they are and how close they come to you, and just just that experience, he had never seen anything like that. I guess one other practical thing, because if you're open to the underwater experiences, and hopefully you are, is just very practical. Is I got like an underwater box to go over my phone, so all of my footage is shot on my iPhone. So you don't have to get a GoPro. It's just as good, if not better, actually, than a GoPro. Just get an underwater box and get it on Amazon, and just make sure if you do it that you have the wristband that wraps to your wrist, because you don't want to drop that thing in the ocean in the current. But it really paid off. I mean, everybody's blown away by the footage they saw. They thought it was professionally done. It was just my iPhone.
Yeah, that is a great thing because the wildlife gets so close. You can get by with, something like a smartphone and get photos that are just amazing. Plus, the lenses today are so incredible in most modern
Yeah,
smartphones that you can get amazing shots.
yeah, that's right.
Amazing. And final question for you, Blair. So you experienced the typical Quasar itinerary in terms of duration, which is 7 days. We offer a 7 and a 14-day one. 7 day is what most people do, and then there are companies that do, much shorter trips, 3, 4, and 5. What would you say about the duration, right? Because you had done cruising before. Most of those cruises generally are a little shorter. So when for people who have this concept of cruising from previous experiences, what would you say about spending a week in the Galapagos? What do you think about spending, 7 days? Too much, too little?
No, I think it was just perfect, actually. I get restless after about 10 days anywhere on vacation. 10 to 14 days, I'm ready to go home. 3 days to me would not be enough because of what you're seeing. Because every day you're seeing a different island for the most part. And every island is unique in and of itself. So to me, it was just enough. And the itinerary, as you said, the itinerary is there. You guys have anticipated and thought of everything. Quasar has, but you don't. Even though my recommendation was do everything, but you don't have to do everything. If you're
Right.
exhausted, just relax, enjoy the scenery. But I definitely think seven days it was perfect. It was just enough. Wasn't too long, and it was just right. Felt just right. And at the
Excellent.
end of those 7 days, you feel like you're ready. You're ready. You've seen a lot. You've experienced a great deal, and you're ready to go at that time.
Yeah. Plus, yes, for most people, just getting to Ecuador and the Galapagos is a long ways, right? So coming there just to spend like 3 days in the islands, by the time you're getting settled in, it's time to go back. So I'm glad you experienced that, and we actually use that in a lot of our sales material. Is just right. 7 days is just right. 14 days might
Absolutely.
be for the bird watcher or somebody who has a lot of time. Most Americans also only travel 1 week at a time, so it's kind of like the
Hmm.
perfect duration. But I'm glad you saw the benefits because those are the itineraries we've been running for the last 37 years.
Yeah, well, 37 years of experience tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
If I may, one other I guess suggestion I would give is to, after those 7 days, we ended up spending a day, just one day in Quito. So you're not coming back to Quito and then getting on a plane right away, and just toured Quito for a day. So that's also well, it's part of our itinerary, but it's also, I think, something I'd recommend and not miss that. If you've traveled that far, just enjoy the city for at least a day.
Yeah, excellent piece of advice. We often have guests that just use mainland Ecuador as a stopping point to go to the Galapagos, but there's so much to see and do in Ecuador that I'm glad you experienced a little bit of it. But there's the Amazon, the Andes, the coast. There's just a lot to do in addition to Galapagos.
I got to come back. See, this is still
You
much
see?
so much more to see.
Excellent. I think that's it. That's it for me, Elizabeth. I don't know if you have any additional questions.
Nope, all good. All good on my
You got
end.
nothing, Elizabeth? Nothing?
I did
Well,
help with Fernando's questions.
Okay,
well,
perfect.
I can honestly say she is an admirer of your work,
Oh,
as
thank
am I. We talked about that before. So thanks for giving Quasar the chance. Thanks for coming with us, Blair. We really hope you had a wonderful time, as it looks like you did. And thanks for taking the time to answer these questions.
Oh no, listen, it was my pleasure. I absolutely loved it, and it's something I will never forget. So, Fernando, Elizabeth, thank you for everything you did to help it happen, make it happen for us.
Fantastic. All right.
Okay,
Thanks for your time, Blair.
all right.
Bye,
Take care,
Elizabeth.
guys. All right,
Thank
thanks.
Take
you.
care. Bye.
Bye.